Hello, hello. David, can you hear me?
Hi everyone. Yep.
Hey, thanks so much for joining. Um, I will just, yeah, I guess, well, I'll just briefly introduce you and then I'll let you take it on. But yeah, I guess first of all, good to see everyone here again. This is the third workshop in our series for our Ethereum for AI hackathon. Yeah, good to see some familiar names in the chat as well. This time round, we have David here, who is the AI lead at Ethereum Foundation and also the co-author of the EIP for ERC-8004. I'll let him explain more about that and how to build, trustless agents and establishing trust using this ERC. But yeah, I guess if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. Yeah, I guess David, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk about like ERC 8004, like the main part of the workshop, but I'll also talk about related protocols, for example, like X402 for agentic payments. Um, and also I'll touch like the virtuals ACP actually and how like we can build like a full stack on Ethereum for like trustless agents that like makes these different standards and protocols play together. I'm pretty excited about this. Yeah, I'll just give a brief intro of like the types of protocols that these standards are based on. This is like the A2A protocol from Google, MCP, and then other agent protocols and services. And then I'll show you guys like what we mean by like trustless agents, like on the discovery side, trust side, and payments. And then I'll essentially give an initial overview. And there is some alpha here because this ERC 8004 right now is in the draft mode. So we released like the first version around 4 or 5 weeks ago. But later this week, we will release the stable version. So we've been working like really around the clock and talking to like all the main teams building agents in the Ethereum ecosystem, and we have a new spec, which we think it will be the stable one. It's the one around which we are gonna make a big push to like get the standard adopted in the ecosystem. And we have a very cool event at DevConnect, which I also want to tell you guys about. But yeah, I'll share for the first time actually like the new spec. Yeah, so the vision for us is that we want to make Ethereum like the global settlement and coordination layer for machines. This includes agents today and like robots in the future. We have two focus areas. And when I say we, is like this DAI team that we recently formed at the Ethereum Foundation that I lead. So one is like we want AIs to use Ethereum's financial rails, right? We don't want them to use other centralized blockchains. We don't want them to use like fiat payments, which they won't use anyways because they're not good. We want to use a decentralized ledger that we are all building together. So the first one is like financial rates for AI. The other one is like the decentralized AI stack, right? So how can we build like some privacy preserving, more secure AI, which is not centralized? So this includes like inference protocols, in the future training protocols, like data protocols for fine tuning. Is like the entire AI stack. And then what we do is we do protocol research. For example, like ERC 8004 is like one of them. Like we design the standard, and then we also do ecosystem support. So I'll also give a plug. You guys can join the builders group for 8004, and we work together with virtuals and with like many other major projects in the Ethereum ecosystem. Yeah, so why do we need these agents cooperating, right? It seems that so far in AI, like most of the focus has been on like single models, right? Like these centralized companies are building like larger and larger models. They're writing these scaling laws, right? Every 6 months, there is a larger model that is more powerful than the previous one. But the reality is that these these scaling laws, like at some point, they will start to plateau, and people are already looking into, okay, what is the next way to scale AI? And a lot of major labs are working in the multi-agent space right now, right? Essentially, like it is clear that like there will be a need of specialization of different agents, and then they're already putting out these multi-agent frameworks, right? Like, so what they do in Grok Heavy, for example, is when you send a task, they send it in parallel to many agents, and then each one is going to like compute a response. And then what they do is they have some consensus mechanism to actually put the responses together. So they want diverse agent to answer, and then they aggregate the answer. There is also this open source project called MassGen that are also starting to work together with like more closer to the Ethereum ecosystem. This is from some DeepMind team that is doing the same thing. It's like kind of multi-agent reasoning and consensus. Yeah, and then there is all these protocols popping up like A2A, MCP, and other bespoke protocols, which we want to support, right? Because this is kind of like the new infrastructure for how agents communicate. And I believe like even like some early version of virtuals, I don't want to misspeak, but they were kind of based on these protocols as well. Yeah, so A2A is an open standard. The ambition of A2A is essentially that like they want to create this communication network for agents built and owned by different organizations. But the reality is that before we started working on 8004 and the X402 payment extension, this cannot really be done, right? So essentially, we want to extend this agent-to-agent protocol to be communication, but communication without trust, right? So it was intranet before, and now it becomes internet. Yeah, as I said before, the three main thing to make trustless agent is like you need to discover them, you need to establish trust, and then you need some way to like send payments. Yeah, just a brief shout out is like there is this X402 protocol for payments, right? This is like HTTP based, and then in the backend there is like blockchain settlement, like initially in USDC, but now they are quickly expanding it to like support for every chain and every ERC-20 token. And we collaborated with Coinbase and Google to like design the spec for like this A2A X402 extension. So this is something that you can already use today. It's available in A2A, and X402 is live on Base and on many other chains. Um, yeah, and now let me go into like ERC-8004. So we call trustless agent. So just to give like a quick view on what happened, right? So we launched this like 5 weeks ago, and it unleashed like a lot of energy in the community. Just people interested in building, right? Like there is no financial aspect to this. It's just like a standard on Ethereum. But like so many projects came together. We started like a community call. We had the first one like 10 days ago. There were like 250 different builders. Um, when we launched 5 weeks ago, like after 3 days, we had like 5 independent implementations. There is like around by now I think there is more than 100 teams like in the builders group like building on 8004. and is also the number one conversation on the Ethereum Magicians, like the forum where all the improvement proposals are discussed. Uh, yeah, so before I go into the details and maybe people start like sleeping or like get distracted, I wanted to give you guys this link. So this is the link for the builders group for 8004 is where like we post all the announcements. People can ask questions and people can get the links to join the community calls. So I'll give it again at the end, but if you are still awake, given that I know it's pretty late in Asia, like you can just note this down. Yeah, so why now? Like, why all this excitement around like this standard is happening now? Um, I think there is two main reasons. One is there is all these standards in like Web 2 AI that are popping up, like MCP marketplace and registries are everywhere. The A2A protocol. The problem with this is that number one, they're all centralized registries. Like even for the MCP, it's effectively like Anthropic and Microsoft that own the registry. Um, and the second one is like even for A2A, which is a more neutral protocol because it's starting to transition under Linux Foundation, there is still a lot of trust assumptions. Like it doesn't really support trustless interaction. And then like on the Ethereum side, which is the side that is closer to us, like there is so many projects that are launching agents protocols. Like yeah, Virtuals is one of the main ones. But like the problem here there is that there is at least like 4 or 5 different protocols, and everyone has their own framework. Um, so yeah, someone is drawing arrow. Um, yeah. So everyone has their own framework. So we don't want fragmentation, right? Essentially, we want permissionless innovation on Ethereum. We want like everyone to like be able to customize their protocol, but it would be nice to have like a very thin layer where like everyone is using the same standard, right? Like at the very basic level, and that's what we're trying to do. Um, yeah, maybe. mm, Here I'll just like highlight that essentially what we're doing is like very lightweight registries, and then like a lot of logic is left to off-chain or to other protocols, like again similar to virtuals or others that is going to build their own protocol, like maybe using this ERC-8004 standard, similar to like how the ERC-20 or ERC-721 was. Um, yeah, and the way to do it is like you can think that these 8004 registries are just the foundation. Uh, so essentially like on one side, like if you are developing an app, you can just register your agent on ERC 8004. If you are providing like validation service, you can also register. And then there is going to be like a bunch of services and different protocols that are essentially gonna like use this standard and we'll have access to like all agents, right? So one example is like I put these virtuals here. They already have a marketplace slash explorer, which is like the ACP. And then of course they have like some agent finance capability. So right now, what you need to do for this is that you can have like, you can include in the virtual marketplaces only the agents that are deployed on virtual itself, right? So if everyone in Ethereum uses these registries, then essentially what you can do is that on virtuals, like you can start like showing and connecting to not only the agents that are built on virtuals itself, but also the ones that are like deployed like on OLAS or like this base agent bazaar, like on potentially on other chains, right? So yeah, that's what the purpose of the standard is, in kind of empowering like projects in the ecosystem. Yeah. So now the boring part, but perhaps like the interesting part, if you're trying to build agent, is like I'm gonna give a quick view of what this standard is. So there is three registry. The first is this identity registry. So essentially, like you need if you have an agent that is doing either like serving some request, for example, like booking some trips, generating some images, generating some videos, um, like providing like some trading or investment service. So you register your agent in the identity registry of 8004. It's very easy. Like what the agent need is just like an agent ID, an agent domain where you host like a registration file which has like basically all the spec and all the endpoints of this agent. The agent ID is also ERC-721 compatible. So like basically you inherit all the services that like you have for ERC-721. And then the agent address, which is the one that owns the agent ID, is like your address as like the person or the organization that deploys this agent. Um, and then essentially, as I said, on the registration file, you have the endpoints, an array which shows like all the chains on which these agents are registered to. Like they could be registered on like multiple chains, like for example, like Base, Arbitrum, World, etc. And then there is like I talked about trust, right? So I will talk later about another registry, which is like the validation registry and the reputation registry. That's how like trust is implemented here. Yeah, so this is one example of like how this registration file looks like. So it has like a type, name, description. Then there is a bunch of endpoints. Like essentially, like you could instantiate like your agent as a A2A endpoint. You could also instantiate it as MCP. You can give it a wallet that people can like call to like send funds directly to the agent for the paid services essentially. Then the registration, and then you must indicate at least one way in which you want to provide trust. So reputation, crypto economic, like similar to eigenlayer style, and then this TE attestation. Yeah, so identity registry, since like these agents are ERC-721 compatible, is essentially like similar to an ERC-721 registry. Like all the standard interface applies here. Um, you can create a new agent by specifying like an agent domain and agent address. You get the agent ID. And then you can also update like the domain and the address if you are the owner or if you are like a delegate, right? Since ERC 721 also allows like delegation. And then there is a bunch of public resolvers. And the discovery flow is straightforward, right? So when you want to discover a new agent, you start from the identity registry, you resort to the domain, you fetch the registration file, and you know exactly like all the capabilities and endpoints of that agent. In reality, we expect that there will be some services like indexers or like marketplaces, similar to what Virtuals is building as well, that will allow you to like more seamlessly like identify and fetch the agents that you need. For example, like let's say that there is like 50 travel agents on 8004 registry, you want the best one. So you probably like the best way is like to use one of these like marketplaces like I know that Virtual says the butler agent that actually helps you like route your queries, but you can also do it directly like from our design is perhaps like a little bit more cumbersome. Yeah, second one is like the reputation registry. So this is quite important. So like here, the way to think about this is we are building like the foundation of a reputation system. So essentially what happens here is that whenever like an agent accepts a job, like a server agent, it signs a feedback auth ticket. So essentially like it gives the client this ticket to leave a review, like once the task is done, right? Um, and there is a bunch of validity condition, of course. And then what happens is that uh, when the client is like ready to give feedback, it calls like the give feedback function on this registry. And essentially, as you can see here, like from the fields, is that you need to submit a score from 0 to 100, and then there is two tags that you can use to actually like explain what this score is. And then there is an off-chain, like there is an URI for like an off-chain JSON, uh, which has many more fields. And there is also a convention for this in the spec, where essentially you can instantiate any type of reviews. You can write like long form reviews, um, but the on-chain part is just the score and potentially the tags, right? Like in order to give some minimal composability, but not to make it too expensive in terms of gas. Yeah, so you can also revoke feedbacks potentially if you are the client submitting it. Um, and yeah, so there is this revoke feedback function, and like essentially, if you do, then like the information still will be on chain that the feedback has been revoked. Um, and then the other concept that we added in this stable version is the responses. So like the reputation registry also supports responses for each feedback. So this can be like refund notes, dispute notes, or tags as a spam. Um, and you can just append response to essentially like any feedback if you have like the index, and then you can attach like a response URI off chain, right? Yeah, and then there is a bunch of read function that allows to like parse both the feedback and responses. Um, and then essentially like the idea here is to have like some minimal canonical data on chain, and then to have like um, probably like what's going to emerge is a lot of indexers, subgraphs to like fetch and parse and interpret like the structure of URIs, and similarly for tags and responses. Uh, and we merge a lot of like reputation system. Like there can be like agentic rating agencies, reputation system. This is actually like very interesting area if you're building to actually like consume all this data, both the on-chain part and the off-chain part, to like really give an insight into what's happening in this agent economy. Yeah, the third one is the validation registry. So here I'll just be more brief, but essentially like what happens is that um, for some tasks, you may want to actually validate them, like using a TEE, for example, or re-executing the code, like eigenlayer style AVS. So you can also do that. And we have this validation registry, which is an entry point, right? So essentially, if you choose that you want a trust model, which is like TEE, then uh, you submit a validation request, and then like you need to provide like the validation service, which can be yourself as well, can needs to provide this validation response. And there is basically like tracking and transparency around like which tasks have been validated. Yeah, so like the way it works is like the server posts a request, like whenever he wants a job to be validated, there is like a pending validation, and then once the validation happens, like there is an event essentially. Yeah. Um, Maybe before showing what's next, yeah, actually, let me tell you what's next. I can then maybe take some questions and I can also show you like what people built with 8004 so far. Yeah, so we are going to release the stable spec v1 later this week. We're also gonna have like reference implementation, like the actual smart contract registries implemented like on the test net of like Ethereum base and all the other major chains. In October, we are hosting like some hackathon and workshops to like, I mean, you're welcome to actually like, even during this hackathon to like register and submit your agent on 8004. We'll have like more specialized ones. We also organizing an in-person event before DEF Connect, like Build Week. And then on November 21st, we have this Trustless Agents Day at DEF Connect in Buenos Aires, where we're inviting like all the main builders to like demo what they've done. And yeah, again, if you want to participate in this, the best place is this t.me/ERC-8004, which is the Telegram group for the builders. Yeah, and maybe that's me. So you can also follow me like on socials, David E. Krapis for updates. And yeah, maybe I'll stop here for now and see if there is any questions.
Thanks, David. I think yeah, there are a few questions. I'm happy to sort of like, I guess, moderate those, like just read them out for you so it's easier. Yeah, I think Gun had a question on, does ERC 8004 rely on off-chain computation, or can it operate fully on-chain without scalability bottlenecks?
Yeah, these agents are deployed like they are services that run off chain, right? Like the way to think about this is like these registries is just like kind of like the coordination layer slash routing, like the marketplace are also the routing layer. Like basically, it's like the address book where you go and find an agent. But then once you found a server agent, what you do is like you see from like the registration file all the endpoints, and these endpoints are like the endpoints of the service. So then when you initiate like an interaction, you call directly the agent point, which is off chain. And then what happens is that after the service is completed, then like the review or the validation, that's logged again on chain. So this address book kind of, it's a very informative one and it grows with the trust that each agent accumulates. But the execution itself is off chain. So you can have millions of agents on the layer one, even billions or trillions of agents on the layer twos, right?
Right. Yep. I hope that answers your question, Gun. Moving on to the next one, Priyank asks, how do you envision ERC 8004 evolving over the next few years as AI agents become more autonomous?
Yeah, I think we are building for that world. So I feel that this could really become a hub where like a lot of agents are registered, and I feel that as agents become more autonomous and there is more use cases, this I was talking before around like the explorer, the marketplaces, like this will be like much more important because like let's say that today there is like maybe only like 10 different use cases, and like actually virtuals is like leading the charge on this, like experimenting with a lot of these. You can do it in the same marketplace, right? But then let's say that you have hundreds of agents doing like different stuff, like from personal stuff like trip planning, like some local service, to like more technical stuff like auditing services or like more financial services, etc. You will essentially you will have like different marketplaces that specialize on like different types of services. So I'm pretty excited about like this autonomy. Yeah, you could have even one for more ro robots or like drone services. So yeah, like as autonomy increases, the usefulness of 8004 will only go up.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Especially the specialized sort of registries.
Yeah.
I think Bilal has a question on how would the choices stated for the trust models work?
Oh,
What
yeah, yeah. So essentially, like when you register your agent, you need to declare if your trust mode is reputation, or if it's like crypto economic validation or TE validation. So if it's reputation, then essentially like uh, when whenever your agent receives a task, you will also need to like sign the feedback receipt, like as per the reputation service, right? So like essentially the way it works is that you just specify it at registration, and then like your task also get registered in the reputation um, um, registry. If you are on the validation side, instead of the reputation registry, you will use like the validation one. And we will publish more specs on how that happens. So especially for the validation part, there is going to be like some off-chain kind of like uh, SDKs or APIs that you can call to get the validation, which are outside the protocol, but we are working with all the main like TE providers in Ethereum to actually give that service as well.
Mm, okay. Okay. Manish has a question on is there a way for ERC 8004 to interoperate across L2s and rollups, or would separate implementations be needed?
Yeah, so our idea right now is that each chain is going to have like a single ERC 8004 registry. So there will be like one on the layer one, one on Base, one on Optimism, one on Arbitrum, like etc. So uh, interoperability is not really a problem, like as when you have assets on different chains as much, in the sense that in this case, like even if you are registered on Base, like you can specify that you are registered also in the other registries on the other chains. And at the end of the day, this is just like the entry point of where you accumulate your trust, for example, on the reputation side, or like where you send your validation. So I think what will happen is that the off-chain services like the marketplaces, the explorers, etc., can easily aggregate and index like agents that are registered on different chains. Yeah. But for each chain, this needs to be unique, right? Because otherwise there is too much fragmentation and like it doesn't make any sense to like have like two or three replicas of the same registry unless this will be like as we said before, like some more specialized registry potentially in the future. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Moving on. Loop, sorry, not sure if I pronounced your name, but she has a question on whether there's a template on GitHub to reproduce this, if there is
Uh,
one available.
yeah, there is someone when I was talking about reference implementations. So after we published the spec, um, a few different teams they actually wrote the smart contracts of the registries, and they are public on GitHub. So if you join the builders group, I put it here. Uh, I can fetch those and share it there. They're already shared. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, There's another question on where is that hub of agents? Not too sure what this is referring to. But I guess maybe we can move on from that for now, unless you want to provide more detail to that question. There's another one on how does ERC 8004 address Sybil attacks? Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a few ways. Like the number one is that there is actually a fee on that you need to pay to register. So initially we thought that there may be an additional fee for the registries themselves, but we came to the conclusion that that's not needed. Like basically, like the fee you need to pay to send the registration transaction, like is enough to like discourage like large scale civil attacks. Yeah, you can still try to like register to pollute the reputation, etc. But for this one, it's still costly, and the more reputation you accrue. So let's say that like if you have like only 10 reviews, you need to send in the order of 10 to like change your score significantly. If you have like 10,000 reviews, then you need to send like 10,000 like fake transactions to like actually change your score meaningfully. So like we essentially believe that there is some resiliency there, that as you accumulate trust, it's harder to fake. And the other thing is there is a lot of data that you can submit. There is the responses that like people can also use to like combat like explicit spam. And yeah, we believe that like these off-chain services are gonna like the subgraphs, the indexer are gonna filter out like the spam transactions. So like in the registry itself, there may be a bit of spam, but when you access it through virtuals or through some other marketplace, you would already see like the most legit reviews.
Right. Okay. Um, there's another question on how do you see the standard being adopted on a larger scale outside of the Ethereum ecosystem? Is that even possible?
Yeah, so I think Ethereum needs to become like the back end for this agentic economy. Like this is some work we need to do all together, like building on Ethereum, but also then like talking about it with like people outside. Like that's part of the work I'm doing, is like talking to like AI builders and AI labs, showing them, hey, this is a new form of trust that actually can enable like more massive scale for your agentic system. So yeah, uh, my view is that in 5 years, like most of like agentic interaction will use some way Ethereum in the backend, be it for payment, for trust, or for identity. And um, yeah, I feel that this could really be a big standard if it succeeds.
Great. Um, Moving on, there's a question on does this spec keep track of success or failure rates of agents and latency so that a client can view these stats before deciding to call it or not?
Ah, great question. So we actually, the team of the graph uh, actually like is also in the builder group, and they are planning to launch like an agent which is essentially gonna test like for latency and for responses to the other agent. So but essentially there is this like agent on 8004 that like every week sends a bunch of like test queries to a sample of agents and checks like if they're online, what's their latency, and etc. So it's almost like a rating agent that is there and checking like what's going on in the 8004 network, and kind of like submitting like this feedback on this. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this use case.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool stuff. And thanks for the questions, guys. Keep them coming. There's another one on how does the crypto economic trust system work? Like, does that require the agent to put some tokens into the protocol or stake something like that?
Yeah, so it could we want to make things for agent developers as easy as possible. So it could uh, be like, okay, so if someone has already deployed like AVS on Eigenlayer, for example, for their service, they can just use that. There will probably be some smart contracts where like you can implement this bonding mechanism, but we haven't built that yet. I don't think anyone has built it specific for 8004. The third option is that essentially uh, you send the task to like some external service. I don't know if you guys have seen, but just today Eigenlayer released uh, Eigen AI and Eigen Compute for AI. So this is an example of like an external service where in the future you will be able to just to like send your task to be validated, like with basically a transaction. You don't need to implement the staking mechanism yourself. Like there will be like restaking already taken care of in this service, basically. So that to me is like kind of the simplest option that will probably pop up. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Um, yeah, okay. I think yeah, this question about the hub stuff, I think it's asking for like examples of like hubs or marketplaces of agents so far. I guess virtual is an example of that. I'm not sure if you know any others.
Yeah, the other one is I don't know too much about it, but yeah, let me quickly see. Um, yeah, Olas also has a registry. Like they focus mostly on this kind of like financial agents or betting on prediction market. There is this other one which is um, let me see if I can find. Yeah, so yeah, so there is, yeah, as I said, there is OLAS, which is focused more on financial agents. There is like this X402 Bazaar that was launched by Base, I believe, that is more focused on tooling. So like it's agentic tools, basically. Like yeah, you can call like some data API, etc. These are also compatible with 8004. So in a way, like these specialized registries are already popping up. Um, yeah, so these are a few examples. Like I think there will be more in the future. Like as I mentioned, like virtuals, you can also think about it as a hub. Yeah,
Got it, got it. Yeah, I just put a link to the 402 Bazaar thing in the chat as well, if you guys want to check that out.
yeah, yeah.
Um, there's another question on cross-chain interoperability. I think it's kind of similar to the question you answered before. I'm not sure if anything else to add there, or we can move on, I suppose.
Yeah, I think same answer, just like one 8004 registry per chain, and then they can be aggregated. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Next one. What verification model does ERC-8004 use to check whether an AI agent actually followed its intended logic?
Yeah. So this is a very important question, and like actually there is like a lot of nuance to this. Like on the crypto economic side is a little bit simpler because you essentially need to like replicate the execution of that agent. But then on the TE side, it's a little bit nuanced on like what exactly are you proving, and like if the agent like needs to call external tools, then like those are kind of backdoors, which parts of the runtime you're proving. Yeah, we are still working on that part. That's the last part we need to like lock in. So probably we can share more around the exact logic like in a couple of days when we release the spec. But yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, and I feel that reputation and crypto economic is easy. T is a bit harder, but we want to abstract this away from like the agent builders.
Nice, nice. Looking forward to that new release. Yeah, another question on, can the agents store long-term data on chain, or do they rely on decentralized storage like IPFS or Filecoin? I suppose up to them, but yeah.
Yeah, so some lightweight data is on chain, and for example, like the registrations in the ID registry, they're all on chain. On the reputation registry, like the scores themselves and the events of like when events are created, they are on chain. But then beside the score, like the text of a review, or like if it's like multi-dimensional review that you are reviewing different stuff, like you're reviewing like a task, you are reviewing like some style of how it was made, etc., etc. There is a URI. So for each review, there is an off-chain URI with a JSON file. It could be IPFS, it could be something else. But then you go and fetch like the full data payload from off-chain. So you have like some minimal on-chain composability, which is fully trustless with the score, and then you have like some bigger data that you can really go and dig off-chain. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have up till now. So I suppose, David, if you have anything else you want to share or talk about, or if not, it's fine as well. Yeah.
Yes. So maybe I want to like I can drop here in the chat a bunch of things that people have built. So if you guys want to check them out,
Nice. Wow.
yeah, so there is a lot of stuff that like people are building on this. So these are just a few ideas. Yeah, these are more on the infra side, and then I guess on the agent side, like you guys from virtuals are kind of on the forefront of trying out new use cases. I'll also be sharing more in the coming weeks on like what are some cool ideas of agents that you can build.
Very nice. I guess everyone should save that list because looks like a lot to go through, and yeah. Um okay. Well, I guess that's pretty much it then. We can sort of wrap it up here. Give back 10 minutes to everyone. Yeah, thanks so much for your time, David, and thanks everyone as well for tuning in. This recording will be saved and shared in the group later as well for people who have missed this. Yeah, well, 3 more weeks until submissions. Well, 2.5 weeks until submission closes. Looking forward to it. Keep them coming in. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the TG group. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye bye.